So at the time that you're listening to this, it is actually my birthday. And I thought it would be extra fun, if you will, to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And that is one of the most common struggles among entrepreneurial and successful women that so many people, I feel like, don't even want to admit. There's a lot of shame around, and it's something that there needs to be some normalizing around, but it's also something that when we experience it, we can do more than what we're doing with it. And so I'm talking about two separate things that are related. And so today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome, and we're going to talk about self-doubt. And the biggest reason why we're talking about this is when you reach a certain level in your business, there is only so much strategy that can help you continue to grow. There's only so many tactical things that you can change, experiment with, put in place before you recognize that there's only one commonality, and the commonality in your business and in your leadership is always going to be you. And so this is why you'll often hear people say that, like, when you sign up for entrepreneurship, you are basically putting yourself into a forever school for personal development. And it's real. And from what I've seen in all of my client interactions over 12 years of coaching, is that our biggest roadblocks and obstacles are always ourselves. And so I went into detail a lot about that in the episode about getting out of your own way. And so if you need a little tough love and you have the awareness that you're in your own way, I highly recommend listening to that episode. But today we are diving into self-doubt. We're diving into the thoughts that keep us stuck. We're diving into the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are. Because when we start businesses and as we grow our businesses, again, we need so much knowledge and skill set and expertise. And those things have to continue to flourish and grow. But like I said, the level of personal development that's required for us to be better humans is something that is really, it's known, but I don't think it's taken as seriously, because I think that it's always easier for us to grasp onto what we know. And that's why you've probably experienced at some point where you felt like you were gaining momentum, or you felt like you were moving in the right direction, or you finally made a decision that felt powerful, that felt like, okay, I'm going to change the way that I'm leading the business, that I'm running the business, the way I'm doing something in the business, or the way that I am, because I'm the problem. I'm going to change that. And then quickly thereafter, you experience this level of discomfort that is like nothing you've ever felt. And it confuses us because we're like, wait, I have selected to do something better. I have selected to no longer do something that was hurtful to me for the business, taking too much of my time, requiring me to sacrifice myself. Why does this not feel good? And so a lot of my clients, we go through this as part of their journey, and that, like, when we go to make a change for the better, it's like, okay, I can do this. There's that initial motivation and excitement around it and enthusiasm. And then as you actually get into the work and you start having to match that intention with action, you're like, wow, this doesn't feel good. you're consistently challenged and your old thoughts and behaviors continue to play and show up in every single situation. And so this is why a lot of people use strategy to almost band-aid what is really happening. And so it's my belief, and this is why I always take a holistic view when I'm coaching, because it's my belief that we have to have both, right? We have to have tactical steps. We need to know what we're doing, how we're doing it, when we're doing it. We need that clarity, right? To be able to take action in the direction that we want. But let's think about action in itself. And to take certain actions, especially if they're actions we've never taken before, you need a certain level of confidence. And confidence and finding confidence in uncertainty is not likely, because if you think about what confidence is developed over time by getting better at something, by truly believing in something. And so imposter syndrome comes up in these kinds of situations when we recognize and we feel that internal knowing of like, I feel like I'm being reduced to something smaller. I feel like that I have more to share, more to give, or a higher level or capacity of giving, and knowing that there is a level of impact that you're not reaching, and that you possess the ability to do it, but it feels so far away. And or you just have this desire and these ideas and this inspiration, this vision for growth, and you just can't seem to reach it. And so these stories that we tell ourselves when we're trying to get to and take steps and reach and take action, when we don't and aren't fully confident in who we are and our ability to do that thing, we have to battle these thoughts of like, who are you to do that? Why do you think that you should be able to do that? Who are you to sit in that room, sit at that table, have that kind of conversation? And the reason why I'm actually talking about this on my birthday episode is I feel like the imposter syndrome is probably one of my biggest setbacks that I've ever had. And I like to use what I will say are my failures or my experiences to teach, because I don't believe that my lived lessons should go to waste. And so in my journey, as much success as I've built and as much gratitude as I have for where I am, there's always a part of me, especially looking back 12 years in at this point, that thinks, I wonder how much of an impact I could have made by now if I hadn't doubted myself, or if I hadn't told myself I wasn't ready yet, or if I didn't listen to those thoughts that I was afraid to put myself in places or conversations or rooms that felt too big for me. I wonder where I would be. And that's why we grasp onto what we know. And what we know is what we've experienced already. And so imposter syndrome is based in fear. Fear of the unknown, that uncertainty. It is our brains trying to keep us safe, but keeping us smaller than our intuition knows that we have the ability to be. And that's why we feel this tug of war happening internally. And maybe this manifests externally as well for you, to where you may, again, make that decision, make that choice, and then all of a sudden you feel pulled back. And if you really step out of your behaviors, your habits, the choices you're making on a day-to-day basis, Even though you made that decision of, raising your standards, a new boundary that you were going to set, or new boundaries altogether, a certain level of client you wanted to serve, whatever it is, you waffle and you waver, because who am I to serve that level of client? Who am I to stand on those stages? Who am I to write a book? Who am I to release a service that is a stretch in my expertise? And so I've experienced this time and time again. And at a certain point, when you've experienced something so many times, again, you recognize, okay, I'm the problem here, right? So the stories that I was telling myself about who I was, about, a lack of expertise, about, I was inadequate in different ways. These stories that I tell myself, they prevented me from taking the actions that I needed to take to get where I wanted to go. So it's like my heart is like, oh my gosh, you are born for this. You went through all of this for this, to make this impact, to, help millions of people, to make sure that you have the power to help heal, to help grow, to help foster relationships, to help women become wealthy. You have all of this power in your hands. And my heart knows that. And then my head would be like, oh, but wait, what about this? And what about that? And you need to do this first before you do that. And so I'm curious, as I'm talking through this, what sort of stories are coming up for you right now? What is something that you have told yourself or known that was for you, or that you wanted, that you have immediately in your head said, oh, no, not yet. This needs to come first. I'm not ready, because we've all experienced that. And what I want you to take away more than anything about imposter syndrome is that you still have a choice. And this is what keeps people stuck, because there's a sequence of events that happens regardless of how long we do what we do. When we approach a threshold and we make a decision about growth, again, our brains only know what they know, so they want to keep us safe, but safety is in what we think we know. And so because growth is unknown, who we look like, when we're millionaires, who will we be, how will we treat people? There's a lot of that. And it may be so deep that we don't even recognize it. But the sequence of events is the same. We make this decision about, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to be different. I'm going to work less hours. I'm going to stop letting clients, abuse my kindness. I'm going to set these boundaries. I'm going to raise my standards. I'm going to raise my prices, whatever it is. We make this powerful decision, and then we retract. And in that retraction, there is thoughts that start spiraling. And those thoughts are the stories that we're telling ourselves about who we are perceiving ourselves as, or how we may think or assume people will perceive us. And so this is the moment when we hear these things, when we're experiencing this, that we get to say, hold up, I need a new story. I need a new thought. I need something that actually promotes and helps me initiate the action that I want to take. And that thing is usually an acceptance and understanding of that your brain's trying to keep you safe, while also knowing that moving and taking action while being afraid is also okay. Because that's where we get lost. Because we're afraid, and because fear causes us to go fight or flight, it knocks us off what we need to be doing. And so in this sequence, when you find yourself saying, I want to do this, I want to go here, I want this to happen, and I'm claiming it, and then we say, well, who am I? Oh, wait, maybe not yet. Whatever the story is, have awareness of that story and then choose a different one. When we are helping our kids emotionally regulate, And when we're having conversations to build understanding with other people, one of the most important things to do is validate emotions. And so when we're having these thoughts that are emotion based, we can validate, I understand why you may feel that way. And then we can inquire, but what actually is the truth? Because many times these stories are not based in fact, they're based in fear. And that's what keeps us stuck. So imposter syndrome is something that tells you you're not ready yet. You shouldn't be there. And it is our job to meet those thoughts and stories with validation of the underlying emotion and why we may feel that way, and then write something new. It's okay for me to be afraid about setting this boundary, but it is what I know I need for the protection of myself and my family and my time. And so I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it scared. The stories will tell you, if you set that standard, what if all your clients leave? And your response to that is, it's okay for me to be afraid. It's okay for me to know that there is a possibility that people will make a choice not to work with me because of these new standards, because of the way that I'm operating differently. And I also know myself. And as an entrepreneur, one of the things that all of us know is how to be scrappy. You will always take care of yourself. You will always find contentment and safety again. But there is a certain level of discomfort that we need to embrace to be able to operate and do differently. And this is why action and strategy and steps matter, because they are the structure and the clarity that keep us tied to moving forward when we're still feeling wobbly, when we're still wavering. And every single step is how we build the confidence. And so this cycle repeats itself. I want you to understand that imposter syndrome is always going to be there. It's what we choose to do with it that changes. Imposter syndrome is simply showing you that you actually are meant for something bigger. Because the only reason you're feeling imposter syndrome is because you intuitively know in your heart that there is something bigger and more, and maybe a different way to serve, a different level of impact, a different way to reach and help people. If you didn't know that about yourself, you wouldn't experience imposter syndrome. And that's where people get it mixed up, is they feel imposter syndrome and they interpret that as like, I must not be ready yet. And so either you bury yourself in research, trying to build a skill set you think you don't have, or you just say, okay, it's not for me. And none of that is true. So when you doubt yourself, when you feel like you aren't capable, you need to inquire deeper into, why do I feel incapable? What of these things that I'm telling myself is actually fear-based? And when it's fear-based, recognize that that's your brain trying to keep you safe. And then we nurture those feelings by saying, it's okay for me to feel wobbly. Think about our evolution from being babies. We didn't know how to walk. And imagine if we're crawling and we're like, I don't know how to walk. I'm not ready yet. So I'm just going to not do that. I'll just crawl forever. But no, what do? We take one step, we wobble until we're confidently walking, and then we can confidently run. But we can't get to the action part without addressing your mind and these stories and these thoughts. And that's why I felt it was so important to talk about this today, because doubting yourself, believing that you're some sort of imposter and that everybody's going to find out, we need to learn to question these things. When you question these things, when you recognize the thoughts, when you become aware of what is happening and the tapes that are playing in your mind, then you take your power back, because you say, that's actually false. I believed for such a long time that I wasn't smart enough to do the work that I do. And I have heard that tape, I have heard that voice so many times. And if I chose to listen to it, I would not be where I am. but there was many times that I did listen to it. And so I don't want you to act based upon that voice that is telling you that you are an imposter. You're actually meant to evolve. And evolution and growth is not comfortable. And we are absolutely in a comfort crisis right now, where people are so afraid to look at themselves and look at where they really are and where they want to be. People are so avoidant of their emotions and their desires. And you don't have to be one of those people. If we're constantly seeking comfort, we miss out on the growth that we were meant for. And then we get the feelings of not enough. And it's not about doing more, it's simply about being more. Self-doubt and imposter syndrome are two emotions that will cause thoughts in your mind that you always have control over how you respond to them. These are normal emotions. And in business, when you're growing and you're scaling and you're like, who am I to have this big team of people? Who am I to lead this way? Who am I to speak in front of this many people? Who am I to teach this? You're the person who's following your timeline that was meant for you. And so I want to encourage you to do the thing that feels big and hard and scary, and understand that the voices will still be there. But once again, you get to write a new story. You get to respond to those thoughts differently. I hope this has helped you to think about imposter syndrome and self-doubt in a new way. I hope this has been a reminder to you that we all feel it, that it's common, and that we get to choose what we do with it. And there's no difference between you and somebody you're looking up to, because anything that you see in somebody else, you see it because it's also within you. And we absolutely need to be willing to be uncomfortable to continue growing personally and professionally. So thank you guys for listening. And if you haven't yet downloaded the Female Founders Freedom Framework, this is my free downloadable PDF that walks you through the non-negotiables that you need, including action steps, questions. It's quick, it's easy, it's digestible. You can do one area of your business at a time. You can implement this with your team. But this is an incredible resource if you're wanting to have a business that has freedom, that has flexibility, that stops taking away all of your time. And you can grab that at the link in my show notes. So thank you again for being here. I'll see you guys next week.